What's this? A game made by the same person who designed Portal? Oh, this should be good, I hope. Usually when someone leaves a company that made them a star, anything they make after that is generally garbage. Look at Yuji Naka. Probe is such a failure that he wants to return to Sonic Team, probably just to mess things up out of a jealous rage.
For anyone that doesn't know, Kim Swift was a Valve employee who was a lead developer for games like Portal, Left 4 Dead, and Left 4 Dead 2. Then she decided to leave Valve, probably due to her ego being so large that the Valve building just couldn't contain it. So she went to Airtight Games, a small indie developer whose only other game is Dark Void. Airtight Games is probably the perfect place for Kim Swift's ego. The entire company must be based out of airport hangars since the company claims ship credit on over 50 titles, with decades of combined experience in the game industry and experience in movies, games, TV, and comic books, but only have 2 games to their name.
It doesn't matter how many monkeys you've trained, they still can't make video games.
Everything about this game seems familiar. I'm in a first-person perspective, going from room to room, solving puzzles in a place where science is the general theme, with a device that's attached to my hand, and there's a voice talking to me over the loudspeakers. There's these things that spit out stuff I need to use, and there's these safes that look like cubes. Oh my god, it's a mutated version of Portal! You can tell that they wanted to make a Portal game. Everything about it screams that they wanted to be the next Portal, but there's a problem. This game sucks.
This is an apple that didn't fall far from the tree and somehow turned into a banana on impact.
The graphics are cartoony looking, but everything looks the same. Each room looks like the same as the last. There's also nothing but safes, boxes, and couches and tables that all look the same. Yeah, in Portal the rooms look similar and there were cubes everywhere, but at least you know it's a testing environment, not a house. There should be more than just 4 items. The music is whimsical, like Disney was making a movie about science. But I think I know where most of their budget went. They hired John Delancey to voice Professor Quadrangle. It's the voice you hear over the intercom. If you don't know who John Delancey is, he's the guy that played Q in Star Trek The Next Generation and voiced Discord in My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. And this is the worst performance of his career. He sounds completely disinterested in voicing his character. There's barely any effort put into his lines. Sometimes it sounds like he's just waiting for his check.
And this game is so boring. Last time I was this bored playing a game was the first Xenosaga.
The game revolves around a dimensional shift mechanic, and you'll be using that to make your way from point A to point B. You'll be using the dimensional shifts to change the physics of objects in the room that you're in. You have a fluffy dimension that makes things lighter, a heavy dimension that makes things heavy, a slow dimension where everything moves at a snail's pace, and a dimension where gravity is reversed. But these mechanics tend to work against you. For a majority of the time, you're in control of the objects, meaning you're at the mercy of the game's physics, which is a major problem because the game requires you to do a lot of things perfectly. And if you don't do anything perfect, you'll be finding yourself having to restart the puzzle. Oh, but the game can forget about the physics anytime it's required, as it will stack objects perfectly. But when you decide to interact with it, that's when things go to hell. A majority of the puzzles are just throwing and timing puzzles. Throw the object and shift the dimension at the right time. That's all there really is to it.
Oh, you better have those Tetris skills honed because you are going to be stacking a lot of stuff.
Another aspect is stacking boxes on top of each other just so you can get to a certain spot. That's when this game becomes a platform game, and this is another mechanic that this game heavily focuses on. The major flaw about this is that the objects you'll be jumping across are too small, so you have to be careful when hopping about. And landing just feels slippery, so you're probably going to fall off a lot. So you're going to have to be careful. However, being careful takes time, which for the most part is not on your side. Because things can get destroyed by lasers that are everywhere, and will kill you if you touch them for any longer than half a second.
And some of these puzzles are cheap, as hell, and they're not even hard, but you are gonna die for the dumbest reasons.
You'll die because you're not perfectly hidden behind an object and a laser will just slice through you. You'll die because you jumped wrong onto a box and slipped off, and the list goes on and on and on. There's puzzles where the game forces you to solve them in a certain way, such as this puzzle. I can take the couch, throw it at the right time, and even though the lasers are nowhere near it, it gets destroyed. You'd think with the ability to alter the physics around you, there'd be more room for outside-the-box thinking. And hearing John Delancey read off this unfunny and unentertaining script is just painful. They're trying. No, they're not trying. They're forcing. They're forcing that Portal quirkiness. This game is not Portal. It will never be Portal. Instead of trying to be its own game, it's trying way too hard to be Portal.
It's like Bubsy or Awesome Possum trying to be Sonic. It's not going to work. And it doesn't take a scientist to figure that out.
This game requires a controller. Using a keyboard and mouse are going to result in constant failure. The defaults for the dimensional shifts are near the movement keys, and that's not going to work well, because some of the puzzles have you constantly moving. But hey, I have a 17-button mouse, so that did ease the pain somewhat. Speaking of mouse, the default mouse sensitivity is way too high, and it's set at the middle, so I moved it to a quarter of the way and it moved way too slow. To find a good sensitivity, you're going to be pausing, navigating through the menus, adjusting, backing out through the menus, and going back to the game. There's also way too much Bloomin motion blur, and I shut those off. And when I shut them off, the game decided just to ignore my request and gave me the finger, because there's still bloom, which is really noticeable in the fluffy dimension, a dimension you use for most of the game.
Okay, I'm wrapping things up. I could not force myself to play this pile of trash anymore. I don't care. I'm just not having any fun. And this is $15 that I'll never get back. You know what? You couldn't even pay me to play this Portal knockoff.